Hey everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood game master Zach Hall here. This is my live reaction to the Kineticist Playtest materials that literally dropped within the last 5 minutes of me recording this video. I'm very excited. This playtest was announced this past weekend at Gen Con, which is always Paizo's big or at least one of their two big announcements. And the Kineticist is its next class that will be released, which is just wild because literally 2 weeks ago was the release of Dark Archive and the release of the Thaumaturge and the Psychic. So getting another class is already, from this 5e Dungeon Master's perspective, is just wild and takes some getting used to. Again, I have no experience with D&D or Pathfinder before 5e. So I never played 3, 3.5, or Pathfinder 1. So I don't have really any preconceived notions of what the Kineticist does. Though I do know that it's a spellcaster, probably, I would imagine. So let's just dive right into the Kineticist live reactions. Looking at the playtest, I will link to the playtest material document in the video description below if you haven't seen it yet. This is a class for the player who wants to never worry about running out of spells, to forge a connection with the primal elements of creation, and to just constantly hurl fire or another element of their choice. That sounds like my cup of tea. It will appear in Rage of Elements, which is the next source book coming out next summer, so a year from now. So the playtest will run, I mean, the playtest really only runs for a few more weeks. So get involved on a Discord community or on a subreddit or forum or whatever if you're interested in actually playtesting the Kineticist and giving Paizo the feedback. From my experience, simply enjoying the product. It seems like Paizo's has perfected the playtest feedback loop and takes their stuff really seriously. So, yeah, cool. Ooh. So this is our Kineticist, Yoon. She looks young. Very cool, though. The power of the elements flows within you, roaring fire, pure water, fleeting air, and steadfast earth. So the avatar, inner gate, inextricably tied to your body, channels power directly from the elemental planes, causing elements to leap to your hand, whirl around your body, and blast foes at your whim. As your connection to the planes grow, you attune true mastery over your chosen elements. Key ability is Constitution. Wow. That's great. I really, really love that. 8 hit points. Expert in fortitude and reflex saves, which makes sense. 3+ intelligence modifier for skills, plus nature, and then train in light armor, simple and unarmed weapons. So during combat encounters, elemental magic surges from you without limit. Without any restrictions on how often you can use your abilities, you become a reliable slinger of magic. You can develop powers that you use in a variety of situations, or you can choose just a few of your favorite attacks you use repeatedly. Dang, this sounds really cool. So the elements you channel might guide or even influence how you carry yourself in social situations. You might leap to anger like a raging fire, stand your ground as solid as a mountain, keep your motives elusive as the wind, or go with the flow like water. Interesting. I wonder if that shows up mechanically. Because everything about this seems so combat oriented that you would imagine if it is so combat oriented that it's not going to give you as many things to do or mechanical benefits for outside of combat, but we'll see. I could see if you picked like mountain or air, or really any but fire. If you picked mountain, wind, or water, that you might get things like swimming speed or climb speed, maybe even the ability to fly semi-reliably. So while exploring, your innate connection to the elements hones your awareness of the natural world. In an environment full of an element you can channel, you're unparalleled with the ability to repeatedly manipulate the element around you. Wow. So in downtime, you could commune with the elements or practice your control over your kineticist powers. Through retraining, you can realign the flow of your inner gate to perfect different manifestations of your element. You might have a conflicted relationship with the inner gate that fuels your kineticist magic, possibly because it manifested at a traumatic point in your past. I like that. Really, instantly sucks you into a potential backstory. Struggle with controlling and understanding your elemental powers, and form a kinship with the elemental creatures, or feel at home in areas strong with your element. Others probably find your ability to keep calling on more and more elemental power truly astonishing. Defer to you in all matters related to your element. Worry you will consume yourself with elemental magic or lose control of its primal forces. I love everything about this so far. If you watch my psychic reaction video, I identified really, really strongly with the oscillating wave conscious mind. And I'm getting the similar vibes, but even stronger just because of how narrow its focus is. And I'm really intrigued by the Constitution ability that makes me wonder, okay, so is there a restriction? It says there is no restriction, no limit. But are you having to make are you having to make fortitude saves at certain levels in order to do what you want to do? I don't know. I guess we're about to find out. Let's look at key terms here real quick first. Impulse. The primary magical actions kineticists use are called impulses. To use an impulse action, you must have an element gathered, which is typically done with the gather element kineticist action. The element must be appropriate to the element trait of the impulse you use. For example, you must have water gathered to use an impulse that has the water trait. Using an impulse requires gesturing and focus on your powers. The impulse trait also means the action has to concentrate and manipulate traits unless another ability changes this. Kinetic aura. Impulses that create an elemental aura around you have this trait. They have the aura trait. First, any kinetic aura is a 10-foot emanation unless you have an ability that changes its size. Second, if you are already in a kinetic aura, it takes you one action fewer to use a different kinetic aura impulse with the same elemental trait. Okay, so it seems like some impulses create an aura of a specific element around you, and if you have already done that, it makes it easier to then potentially use that element again. You can't reduce the impulse below one action. Makes sense. Kinetic aura lasts until you get knocked out, or until the encounter ends, or until you use a new kinetic aura, whichever comes first. You can use a kinetic aura only in encounter mode. And after you use a kinetic aura, you can't use another kinetic aura for one round. I don't know enough about what this actually is or means to know. I don't necessarily know why it would be limited to encounter mode only. I don't like that just in a rule set in general, because it makes it feel like you can't come up with creative ways. Or what is it about being in an encounter for a kineticist that makes this aura only available? Why could they not do it outside of an encounter? So we'll have to kind of look at that more strongly for sure. Overflow. Powerful elemental impulses have the overflow trait, indicating any element you've gathered is consumed in the impulse. When you use an impulse that has the overflow trait, any element you've gathered disappears. Channeling your element to this limit means you can only use one overflow impulse per round, even if you gather element again. In addition, the kineticist also refers to the brutal trait, which is reproduced here for ease of reference. Brutal, a ranged attack with this trait uses its strength modifier instead of dexterity on the attack roll. Interesting. Cool. So, inner gate and channeled elements. As a kineticist, you have awakened or opened a supernatural conduit within your own body that can channel elemental forces straight from the elemental planes. Choose whether this inner gate is a dedicated gate connected to a single plane, a dual gate connecting to two, or a universal gate connecting to all. This determines how many different elements you can channel and how many bonus impulse feats, a special kind of kineticist feat that allows you to shape and wield an element you select at first level. When selecting an element for your inner gate, you can pick from 4 elements: air, earth, fire, and water, which are described in full starting at page 13. You'll probably end up skipping there pretty quickly because you got to know that before we kind of move forward. Dedicated gate. So you've only picked one element. Your inner gate is a dedicated channel to a single elemental plane, limiting you to a single element, but giving you great skill with it. Select one element, and you can channel this element, and you gain 3 first level impulse feats that match the element's trait. The final version of the Kineticist class will include the elements of metal and wood, but weren't included in the playtest. Cool. Little sidebar. So dual gate, your inner gate is a harmonious conduit between 2 planes, allowing you to combine their elements. So pick 2, and then you gain 2 first level impulse feats, 1 with the trait of the first and 1 with the trait of the other. Universal gate, you can channel all 4 elements. When you make your daily prep, you gain 1 first level impulse feat, which you can use until your next daily prep. Interesting. So where the others, you pick them, and it seems like none of the others talk about daily prep. So those are the 3 you're in with unless there's instructions on how to retrain, which I think I remember from the cover page. But with Universal Gate, you only get to pick 1, but you do get to switch it out with your daily prep, but then you can only use it. Well, it doesn't say you can only use it once. It just means you use that until your next daily prep. So flexibility, which I guess is the point of the Universal Gate. So the gather element is the big thing. Single action. You draw matter through your inner gate using the gather element action, giving you pure elemental fuel for your kineticist magic. The form of the gathered element depends on the individual kineticist, but some examples include a chaotic wind orbiting the body, a rotating ball of compressed gravel, flickering flame, or swirling glow of water. So physical manifestation. The way the element occupies your hand can also vary. You might simply hold the element, or you might make swirling gestures with the hand to make the element orbit your body. Single action. You must have a hand free. Primal. You draw forth elemental matter through your inner gate from one of the 6 planes. Choose one element that you can channel. So future-proofing one of the 6 planes, even though we're only talking in the play test about these 4 elements opening up to metal and wood for the actual release. Choose one element that you can channel. A mass of that element appears in your open hand. So you're getting it from the plane. It's not even like you're limited, if you were underwater and you were specialized in earth, you'd still be able to draw earth. You're not gathering it from around you. It is an internal gathering. Your hand is occupied by the element you channeled. You can't use it for anything other than elemental impulse abilities to shape and direct the gathered element. You can use the release basic action to cause the element to dissipate. So single action to release it. Using an action that has the overflow trait also causes the element to dissipate. You can only have one element gathered at a time. And gathering an element again causes any element you've already gathered to dissipate. This element is in a pure form with its typical physical properties. Fire sheds light like a torch. So you can gather an element, hold it, and use it even in environments where this normally wouldn't be possible. So you could gather fire while underwater and use it to fuel fire impulses, even though normally fire actions can't be used underwater or gather air and use it for air impulses in a vacuum. So then once you've gathered the element, you can impulse. An impulse is a special type of magical action available to kineticists, allowing them to wield or shape their element into diverse and powerful forms. You can select an impulse feat only if you can channel its element. To wield an element using an impulse, you must have gathered that element. Your inner gate selection gives you one or more bonus impulse feats, and you gain more with your class feat selections. While there are many ways to shape the elements, all kineticists can simply blast their opponents with elemental fury. So for a single action, you can elemental blast. Wave of your hand, you swing or hurl elemental matter at a foe. You can make him either a melee or a ranged strike using your gathered element. If you make a melee strike, you add your strength modifier to the damage as normal, as the element is more intense when physically closer to your inner gate. Though it's not actually an unarmed attack, an elemental blast uses your proficiency with unarmed attacks, gets any bonuses and penalties that apply to unarmed attacks, and uses weapon damage die and weapon traits in the same way. So the blast can benefit from runes granted by hand wraps of mighty blows. If you have weapon specialization, the blast gains extra damage as if it were an unarmed attack. Elemental blasts have unique critical specializations. If you gain a critical specialization elemental blasts, they're magical but aren't spells. However, abilities that restrict you from casting spells, such as being polymorphed, or protect against spells such as Globe of Invulnerability, or a creature's bonus to saves against spells, also applies to impulses. Any impulse you use is your level. Okay, but any impulse you use is your level, even if the feat or impulse's level is lower than yours. So example, if you're 5th level, your elemental blast would be 5th level. I'm really curious, like that was a lot of words. Just from a mechanic standpoint, I wonder why they have to call out that elemental blasts are not unarmed attacks, even though it looks like an unarmed attack. It does damage like an unarmed attack. It gets proficiency like it's an unarmed attack. It gains benefits from runes like it's an unarmed attack. It walks like a duck. It talks like a duck. Sounds like a duck. But it's not a duck, actually, in this situation. So I wonder what the space is, like, why, like, there must be some wacky crossover that they, like, some kind of influence that if it was actually an unarmed, I guess if it's not an unarmed attack, it doesn't have, this isn't a strike. So is it affected by map? Don't see map anywhere. So you could attack multiple times with because it's not an unarmed attack, there's no multiple attack penalty on it, which means you could first action gather element, second action elemental blast, third action elemental blast, and not be a problem. So air does 1d4 slashing, but is also agile, has finesse, and reach as melee, and then can go up to 120 feet ranged. Earth is 1d8 and bludgeoning and is forceful. As a melee, as a range, it's propulsive. Range is only 20 feet. Fire 1d6 fire damage and is agile and has finesse. Melee is 60 feet. D8, water's D8 bludgeoning with a sweep trait for melee, 30-foot range. So lots of, man, yeah, you can do a lot. I mean, I could totally, this is bending. Kineticist is basically element bending, and if you were going to be an earth kineticist, like, and max out your con, then go strength, you're not going to immediately be, you're not necessarily tanky because you're not trained in armor unless you got training, like you got access to higher levels of armor somehow. I don't know if that's possible. I haven't played enough to actually know. But you could really be upfront and personal doing 2d8 bludgeoning damage per turn. So then adapt element lets you perform simple alterations. For 2 actions, it's trivial for you to tinker with any of the elements you command. Choose a non-magical portion of an element you can channel that's within 10 feet of you. Negligible bulk. No larger than can fit in the palm of a hand, such as small rock, torch, flame, or twig. Choose one of the following options allowed for that element. So, if there's what gather element is a single action and happens internally pulling from the planes, but you can use 2 actions to gather the element from externally, like a torch or a rock. You can move it a foot in any direction. You can regulate it by making it colder or warmer. You can snuff out a flame or turn water to ice or steam. An item that gets hot enough can be used as an improvised weapon that deals 1d1 or just deals 1 fire damage. You can sculpt earth, reshape the portion into a small object. It looks crude and artificial and is extremely fragile. Sustain. Air, water. Choose a creature within 10 feet that can breathe the element. You transfer that element to the creature, allowing it to breathe until the start of your next turn if it couldn't otherwise. Pretty cool. Okay, we're going to jump past the feats really quick and go look at the, look at these. At first level, you can get a elemental familiar. You can shape elemental matter or energy into a deadly weapon. So when you gather an element, you can shape that element into the form of a weapon that you wield in your hand. Choose one element you can channel, and one type of weapon, which is the form and substance the weapon takes. Has to be one-handed, simple, or martial. It must be common, or you have to have access to it. Damage type changes to match the type of the chosen element's elemental blast, and it can't be changed using the versatile trait, modular trait, or similar methods. Strikes with the elemental weapon, use your proficiency for blasts. You can choose. Okay, so when you pick the feat, you have to choose. And then you can retrain for a day to change it. The weapon is still the gathered element and can be used for impulses, and is expended for overflow impulses and so on. It can be used for elemental blasts or standard strikes, provided they're melee blasts or strikes if you choose a melee weapon, or ranged blasts or strikes if you choose a ranged weapon. So if you picked a melee weapon, you could not make a ranged elemental blast with it. Then if it leaves your hand, such as with a thrown weapon, the element's expended. If you choose a ranged weapon that uses ammunition, you must still reload that weapon using the normal number of actions, though you don't have to use ammunition. And then you can choose the feat again with a new weapon. Interesting. I don't know. I'm trying to think why you would choose. My only thing is if you did elemental weapon, but you wanted to specialize in a single element, but wanted the option of doing more damage. Like if you went with air, you have the option of doing the 1d4 agile and finesse weapons or damage, but then you could shape it into a one-handed longsword and do different kinds. Flexible blasts, whatever your physical prowess is, you can adapt your blast to suit it. You can give any melee elemental blast you make the finesse trait. You can give any melee elemental blast you make the finesse trait, allowing you to use dexterity. And you can use any ranged elemental blast you make the brutal trait, allowing you to use strength. So if you wanted to dump or just not prioritize dex or strength based on what element you picked, you could then use flexible blast to make sure that you could use the element that you wanted, but use the proper, like the min-maxed ability score that you have. Cool. All right, let's jump up to the actual, these what do they call them? Impulse feat. So aerial boomerang. This is the overflow. So it consumes the element. 2 actions. A blade of shearing wind races away from you in a 60-foot line. Each creature in the area takes 2d4 slashing damage with a basic reflex save. In the final square of the line, the boomerang whirls in place, and any creature that ends its turn in that square has to save against the boomerang. And then at the start of your next turn, the boomerang returns in a line from the square to your current location with the same effect. Fucking cool. I just know all these are going to be really freaking cool. So air cushion, you can slow creatures fall as a reaction. Fair winds, 2 actions. You can provide a tailwind to speed you and your allies, and a headwind to harry your foes. So you can create difficult terrain, plus give a status bonus onto your land speed. That's an aura. Gotcha. So these auras, the 10-foot emanation, and I think based on what we read earlier, you could basically use fair winds again in the next round for 1 less action because you've already got the kinetic aura going. Whisper in the wind, you can basically use single action message spell. At 4th level updraft, you can move a target up to 30 feet. It can fall. You choose the distance and direction of the jump. An unwilling target avoids being flung if it succeeds at a reflex save. Love it. So you can use it for willing folks to get them up an area, but you can also use it on unwilling foes. Soothing breeze, 3 actions. 3 effects. Oh, healing. Get some healing. Whoa. Nice. Just put out fires, disperses fog and smoke, and heal 3d4. Cool. 6th level, clears air, 2 actions. Compact layers of air diffract and bend light around your body, making you seem as clear as the sky on a perfect day, and you become invisible until the end of your next turn. And you can sustain it, but it ends if you take a hostile action. Wow. While your clears air, you can gather air quietly and invisibly, but the invisibility doesn't hide any manifestations of your other abilities. Cool. Very cool. Storm Spiral, 3 actions, overflow. Dark thunderclouds swarm in a miniature storm. 10-foot burst within 30 feet. Each creature in the area takes 3d12 electricity damage. I was wondering where electricity was going to come into play. I don't know if there's like an electricity or lightning plane, but it seems tied up in air, which makes sense. I'm not going to look at all these. I'm going to skip up to, but it definitely seems like air, the trade-off with air for potentially having weaker combat damage. Lots of use for it. And with the addition of healing abilities. They're not going to be great. You're not going to become a party healer, but like a secondary healer for sure. Let's just jump up to 18th level to look at the last one. 3 action overflow. A sphere of distorted air creates an illusion of a limitless expanse of impossibly blue sky. All then feel the overwhelming sensation of falling forever. The vision appears in a 10-foot burst within 60 feet. Each creature in that area must attempt a will save. A creature that has the air trait gets a result of 1 degree success better. Illusion lasts until the end of your next turn, but you can sustain it. So on a critical success, the creature is unaffected. On a success, they're flat-footed. But if they fail, the creature is flat-footed. It's fleeing from the illusory sky, but it's also disoriented. Anytime it uses an action to attempt to flee, it must succeed at a flat DC 11 check or flee to a space that's still within the illusion. Okay, that seems really interesting, but not incredibly powerful for a level 18. I was expecting something more, which might be Crowned in Tempest Fury, the 2-action overflow. You find a devastating thunderstorm on the plane of air and make yourself one with it, placing a crown of lightning on your brow. Sparks flash in your eyes, lightning strikes constantly in the air around you as winds howl and lift you. Any creature that enters your kinetic aura or ends its turn there takes 2d12 electricity damage. If you don't have a fly speed already, you gain a 20-foot fly speed. If you have the Wings of Air impulse, you instead gain that fly speed and the extra benefits. You gain a 10-foot status bonus to all of your speeds. And if you use an air elemental blast, it deals an additional 1d12 electricity damage. It doesn't say that you can sustain this. I mean, that's fucking cool as hell. But I wonder how long it lasts. This would be cool if it could last like an encounter. But obviously that would be pretty nuts. I would imagine it'll last the round. That the problem is that in order to use you're not going to be able to get every benefit, right? Unless there's a feat here that I skipped over that has, you could do a blast and move at the same time. So Earth, moving forward, I'm just going to look at 1st level and 18th level, just get a sense of what you get when you initially create, and then what you end up, what kind of stuff you get at the very end. For the purposes of this video, there might be other folks out there, or just check out the document yourself. This is just to get a sense of is this cool? The answer is yes. This class is very cool. I can immediately tell, and you know what? I'm not even going to read it. I'm not going to waste your time looking through this. You have the ability to look at the playtest doc. It's linked. It's obvious that the choices in feats here are really cool and do all the things that you want them to do. I know I didn't read everything, but it just seems like anything I want to do I think I can probably do it, which just seems just really, really cool. I really like this. This is a really cool class. I'm interested to see how, how it might change, between the playtest and the class officially releasing. From my personal experience, not with any Paizo things, but just in general, as always, I hesitate to let, if you're a GM who's like me, new, and you think this class is really cool and you're about to start a campaign, not just a one-shot, but a recurring game with a party, and someone mentions they want to play the Kineticist. I don't see anything crazy game breaking here, but I'm a complete noob. I did not look at everything, and there's always the case that there might be some kind of game breaking combo, or really overpowered combo, if not game breaking, with multi-classing, though they didn't include any kind of there is no multi-classing information out here, so I wouldn't allow it. If you have a player that really wants to run the Kineticist, my only suggestion would be to not let them take an archetype, especially don't let them multi-class, just because there might be some combo that, might get sussed out. So if you're interested, just keep an eye on the forums to see people's feedback on it, since the book won't be released for a year, but public feedback on it will be available throughout the next month or so. But if you're worried about it, you're the GM, just say no. Obviously this isn't available for Pathfinder Society games, stuff like that, until it's officially released. But if you're at home and your player's interested in it, you know, possibly just have a conversation with them so that expectations can be level set, and know that most digital tools aren't going to have this fully available. Like, I don't know if things like Path Builder or the Foundry set system puts in playtest information. I kind of doubt it. So you might be on your own doing it manually if you're playing online. So just be aware. So thank you so much for tuning in to this video. I really dig this class. I think it's very cool. I like it a lot, and could absolutely see myself playing one. And I think the design space it fills is unique, which is my biggest thing. Like, this isn't encroaching on the territory of anything else, because it doesn't have spell casting. It's a con-based class, which is awesome and really, really cool. But it doesn't seem to have any kind of complicated trade-off that would restrict this to more to players that are more familiar, used to the system. So I do think a newbie could come in and probably, would they be the best? No. I think a beginner could play the Kineticist. It does not seem that complicated. So really, really cool. I really like it. If you like this video, hit the like button. What are your thoughts on the class? Read the document. Let me know if I really missed something cool, or if there is some game-breaking combo that I'm missing. Let me know down in the comments. And if you like this type of video, I try to do them as frequently as I can and as what makes sense. So hit the subscribe button. I'm about to start my first AP. I'm going to be running Rise of the Rune Lords. Me and my party finally finished up the beginner's box. So here in a couple weeks, I'll be beginning book 1 of Rise of the Rune Lords converted for Pathfinder 2e. I'm excited to publish some GM diary style videos on that game after my sessions. So looking forward to that. Why not subscribe? See those videos in your subscription feed. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy playing the Kineticist. Peace.